Wake up. Good rise. This is Chief Yuya again, bringing another Shrine Orisha podcast segment for you, for your dawning movement, your dawning meditation, your dawning wake up, whatever it is that you're doing, the dawning. And I think this is our fourth one, something like that. But in any event, but not the fourth podcast. Obviously, we're up there already in numbers on the Orisha podcast, which you can go to theorisha.com to get that information, right, or to watch that. So here, let's get into it. Taboos, right? A lot of times, I find that people don't really have a clear understanding of taboos, and I'm not going to get totally deep into it. It's just really one quick point I'm going to make on taboos. I'm making an effort to make sure that these videos are succinct. All right, so for deeper instruction, that's where you take my class, or being a part of our New Life Global Ministries. You can come to retreats and things like that and get more deeper information and things like that. But these segments are just to give you, little sprinkles of gems to help you get through your walk, in this tradition. And I understand that a lot of you listening and riding with this may have godparents that you work with or whatever. And I'm definitely not trying to disrupt that relationship in any way, because we need relationships. It's important. Relationships are our economy. All right. So taboos. A lot of times I find people online speak about Orisha tradition or Ifa in a way with a certain level of authority, though they know nothing about what they're talking about. And sometimes you can tell just in the way they pronounce things. You hear them say like, yeah, because, man, I studied the Orisha. I studied all of that, man. I studied the Orisha and Ifa and, the Yoruba tradition, man. I was in all of that, man. And let me tell you, all that is this. You'll hear him say something like that. And if you can't pronounce words properly, you couldn't have been studying anything too much in depth, because you would have had to at least heard 3 to 4 or 5 people pronounce the words correctly that you're mispronouncing. Unless you just maybe skim through a book in a library or in a bookstore, or watch 1 or 2 videos by someone and say, okay, I know what this is. This is just that. So as a result, what happens a lot of times is people end up violating their own natural laws and violating, their internal balance, because they're committing sacrilege, because they're blaspheming against traditions and against a natural movement and evolutionary movement inside of them that they're kind of ignoring. So the taboos help us to understand, but not just based on, well, everyone shouldn't do this, no one should do this, no one should do that, but more so your taboos help you to understand what's particularly can be a disadvantage to you based on your role in the community. Based on what when you were born, you may have gotten an Itefa, and your Itefa would have said, okay, this child is slated to do this, or let's say slated to be a ruler. This child is going to be a monarch. They're going to be, part of the ruling class in our society. So based on that, there's certain things that this child should be prepared for, certain things they should not do, certain things they should do, right? So there'll be prohibitions, and then there'll also be an understanding of where that child or that person, as they grow, where they'll draw their strength from, right? All good stuff. But what happens, number one, if that reading has never been done, or there's never been any type of elder oversight, real elder oversight in your life, then you start traveling through the world with a high degree of intuition. And just because you're using a lot of intuition doesn't mean that your intuition is correct. We have this assumption a lot of times that, like Bob Marley said, he who feels it knows it. No. He who feels it has had an emotional reaction to something that they thought. But doesn't mean you know the truth. You may know something, so maybe I can even say that, but doesn't mean you know the truth just because you have a feeling. Just because you have an instinctual or not instinctual, an intuitive reaction, because that can be off, and oftentimes it is because of the level of disrespect. There's certain things that come along with instinct, And there's certain things that come along with intuition that have to be fed. Just like if you take someone or an animal that's been domesticated for many years and try to release it out into the wild, we know that it's lost a lot of its instincts. It may not even go. It may try to come back and find you and get hit by a car. You might try to release it from your backyard and it just stays back there. Because and you're thinking, well, maybe its hunting instincts will kick in, but those instincts may have been bred out of that animal, trained out of that animal, beat out of that animal, and ultimately abused out of that animal. But the same thing can happen with us. So some things need to be learned and retaught. And there's a reason why a mother leopard or a mother lion teaches its cubs how to hunt. It just doesn't, it's not something that just kicks in. So it's the same thing when you're dealing with this level of information. There's certain things that you do have to be taught. So with that said, the idea of taboos, a lot of times we're exposing ourselves to different things that actually violates our taboos, which are slowly causing our demise and our death. So say for instance, like I said, I gave the ruler example. I spoke about hunters recently, right? In a previous segment, and talked about some of the things that are expected of the hunter. And of course your hunters, of course you have Ogun, it's like the chief hunter. You have Erinle, Orangan, you have Ochosi, which could also be, I would say probably could be considered a chief hunter as well. And there are other ones as well. But here's the thing, with those hunters, there's an idea even of supremacy with a hunter because they're able to see things and go places that even the chief can't, and they have a certain special relationship with the Iyami as well. Now, why do I bring that up? What's the significance there? One of the taboos, or let's say here, let's give this example. There are a lot of times when a ruler is behaving in a way that's unbecoming or uncharacteristic of what a ruler is supposed to be, then the elders will get together and say that this person has to go. So they will find a way for the person to destroy themselves. They will find a way for the person to destroy themselves. And usually what they do, and I'm not talking about mythology, by the way, I'm talking about how it goes. What they will usually do is use some way to introduce that person to their taboo. So a great example of that, you could look in the Helios Biblios, or the Holy Bible, and you read about the story of Samson and Delilah, right? And Samson, of course, took a Nazirite vow, and there were certain things he was not supposed to do. He was not supposed to drink, of the strong vine, like wine and liquor and things like that. He was not supposed to touch any dead animal. He was not supposed to cut his hair, right? And of course, these are all the things that he did. A lot of people think, oh, Samson lost his strength because he cut his hair. And it wasn't necessarily that. There was a series of things that he did that was slowly and steadily violating his birth vow that made him that Christ figure or that Hercules figure, that Samson figure, right? So the idea there a lot of times is, in order to dismantle and destroy a people who have a certain divine nature, you start to introduce things that are taboo to them slowly. And without a knowledge of self, it's very easy to do that. It's very easy to shovel pork in people's mouths all day and night if they've never taken the time to understand what swine is, and why are some pigs pink and then we have the black boar. Like, what's the difference there? Why is the wild one black and the domesticated one pink? Is there a difference? And people, hey, it tastes good, I like bacon, and you know what I mean, and it just that's it, right? And a lot of times we don't realize that the rulership and the divinity inside of a person is being slowly killed and dismantled as a result. So it's the same thing with the rulers. One of the ways that was done in the past and still is done today to rid a people of a ruler who may be, again, like I said, not behaving in the proper character that a ruler should for the actual place, and he may be bringing harm to a place, they will have him do things like looking inside of a nest of parrot eggs, right? And when you see a nest of parrot eggs, which are kept very high up in the tree, and you're not supposed to look into that nest. And I don't know if any of you have ever seen a bird nest before, right? Now we're gonna go to instinct for a little bit. Have you ever seen a bird nest in a tree? Looked at the bird nest, but on some level felt like I'm not supposed to look in here, like I'm not supposed to be looking around at these eggs, or what if the mother comes back? What if the hatchlings are there and they see me? What kind of effect? Now you may not be like, oh, it's cool, birds, and then that's the end of it. But sometimes instinctually, if those instincts are still there, no, this is not something that I do. This is not a part of my culture. This is not something we do going into this. So in doing that, it's actually symbolic of one beginning to commit suicide. Anytime you violate a taboo, you violate a prohibition, it is considered that you're only doing that because you're trying to end your life. That's it. You're not doing it because no one will be as stupid to do that. It would almost be like, drinking battery acid in copious amounts. Well, you would only probably do that because you want to kill yourself. So a taboo is the same way. So it's just like looking into an otun. An otun is what some of you may call like an Orisha pot. But otun sometimes is what we use to carry water too. So it has different meanings, But you have the idea there of like, this is an environment, something I'm not supposed to look into. Why would I violate that unless a battery's been put in my back? And a lot of times when you listen to different people today, they promote that level of disrespect for the tradition. Like I said, they'll watch a couple videos or whatever, or because they want popularity, and because you have hordes of people who are attracted by ratchetness. Let's put it like it is. So if you use a lot of profanity and you disrespect people and you debunk with pseudoscience or pseudo scholarship, you debunk what the elders have laid in front of you, in front of everyone. People like that. They think it's cute. They're entertained by that, and as a result, you can gain a level of popularity. I see it all the time with certain speakers and stuff, and the way they talk about, oh, he didn't know what he was talking about, or she didn't know what she was doing. We supposed to do this now, do that now. That's taboo. And it's not to say that your elders are beyond scrutiny, but there's a way to address things. And a lot of times people, they have no respect, they have no proper upbringing, which is a sign of an uninitiated person. Because if you're going through a rites of passage and you've been initiated, you're not going to be acting like that. Because you've been taught how to conduct yourself among people. You've been taught the science of humility. You've been taught the science of effective speech and of courteous and polite dialogue. So when you see that and people are, especially adult people, I'll say this because I'm noticing this trend too, where people, guys who are like 24, 25, 26 years old are calling themselves the youth. Well, we're the youth, man. So the elder, you're not the youth. You grown. You out here making babies and having wives, or just making babies, and might be married, might have a girl you with, or whatever. And that goes for the females too. Stop calling yourself the youth. You're using it as a cop-out so nobody will go upside your head. That's really what it is. All right? And only a fool would believe that. Nah, you're not a youth. You're an adult. And you need to conduct yourself with the responsibility of one. Youth are 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds. You see? Those who have not reached beyond puberty. Those are the youth. After that, no, you're an adult. Now, you may be a young adult, but and someone could say, well, youth adult. You're an adult, man. So you got to take a better responsibility, and you shouldn't necessarily be given a pass, if you will. But anyway, let's go back to this idea of taboo. So again, the hunter is significant in this because, you know, sometimes when I've shared this, people have said, well, when the elders bring, or have asked me, when the elders bring these things to, you know, the ruler at that time, well, how do they bring it? Because obviously somebody had to look at it, whatever. Was typically the hunters who would do that. One, because the hunters tend to be a bit braver and they can spot things that other people can't. So they can go by an Iroko tree and see high up and see, oh, there's a nest with parrot eggs in there. And they can, you know, so they're good at spotting and tracking things like that. And they understand, you know, the movement of the forest. They understand, and the Iyami respect the Ise, or the herbalist. Let me say it like that. We'll get into that later. The Iyami really respect the power of herbs. Okay, so like the Iyami even protect the idea, you know, because it's said at night that the women gather by the Awon Iyawa. Awon Iyawa. That's the mothers, our mothers, right? They gather in the trees in feathers, you know, as birds with feathers, and they gather in the trees and they commune at night, right? But if you understand the science there, the Iyami not only commune, bring this down a little bit. The Iyami not only commune in the trees at night, but they commune in the depths of the water as well. That's a whole nother thing. Like I said, I don't typically do shows on the Iyami. In fact, I'll drop a little something here and there, but I make it a point not to really talk about the Iyami because that's for women to do. And I wish some of you women would and actually give some better information. So I'm putting that even as a charge to women in my organization and I knew who are under real teaching. I'm just gonna say what it is, who are under real teaching. That's a charge from me, Chief Yuya, that you need to be speaking about women's issues. There's nothing more disgusting to have women thinking that it's their place to talk to men about men's issues. You talk to the women. Talk about the Iyami. Learn that. Study that before you want to talk about what a man should be doing, because you don't know what a man should be doing. 85% of y'all don't even know what a woman should be doing. Okay? So you want to learn about things about the Iyami and share that with your sisterhood. You know, that's an important thing. I could, but it's not appropriate. See, we talk about the power of taboo. I'm not trying to kill myself by violating prohibitions, cultural prohibitions, national prohibitions, and I'm talking about my nation, you know, and spiritual prohibitions. You know, it's kind of like the Bible says that everything that's expedient isn't lawful. You know, so you may be able to do something. It may be easy to do, and you know, you may not necessarily have any immediate obstructions in getting something done, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't violate a divine law. And that's what that should be your first check off, not can I do it? You know, well, men can do this too, and women can do that too. It's all fluid now. But should you? Are you violating divine law? Just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should do it. You know. So again, that taboo piece is really important. Like I said, rulers are taken out just by exposing them to their taboos. What they'll usually do is they'll get a pot or a nest and have the king look into it, trick the king into looking into it. And what will happen is they'll either go blind or their health will begin to decline really quickly. You know, because just like one is not supposed to look inside of a beaded crown, and that's why you have the beaded bird there to protect the crown. You see that on some of the pots. So now you understand what that means, the relationship there. You know, the crown represents a nest. So when you look into that nest of parrot eggs, it's like looking into the crown that you're not supposed to look at, which is a violation of your taboo, you see. So I say that to say, how many things do we do that may be violating taboo? You know, sometimes I look at the things that are on social media And I say, I'm not supposed to see this. You know, even the level of nudity. As I'm a man who enjoys women just as much as the next man. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time, I don't necessarily want to see her popping her butt up in the air every 5 seconds. You know, in fact, I don't want to see it at all. I want to see my women do that. You know, or letting their breast jiggle and shake, and all these little silly things that they do for attention because they're so starved of real light and manhood. Because when you have a real man in your life, you don't act like that. Because the attention he gives you, the light that he gives you is so intense. You don't need it from anywhere else. You realize the weakness of other sources. Getting a like on a picture or whatever doesn't mean the same thing when you're reflecting that light and you're receptive to it. When you're receptive to it. So you might have a real man and he might leave you because you're not reflecting his light. You decide you want to take your reflector and shine some nonsense, and he says, I'm better than this. What I'm seeing reflected in you is not me. I'm out. Right? So when you have a real presence, you don't violate your own personal taboos like that. But I think about in social media, like I said, all the things that we're exposed to sometimes that we may not necessarily give the proper attention to. And those things will be like looking into the beaded crown and are slowly killing us, or slowly numbing our spirits. And once your spirit is numb, you lose a lot of your direction. See, that's where you lose intuition. You lose the ability to tap into your intuition or into your gut or your God or your gut, because you've been numbed by things that you've allowed yourself to be exposed to that you should not have been exposed to. All right, so that has been just a thought for the day to share with you from the shrine. This is Chief Yuya. You can go to theorisha.com for more podcasts and stuff. We got some forthcoming works coming, some more books, some more videos, and we even have a children's series that is forthcoming as well. So we got a lot of good stuff coming for you all. So make sure you go to theorisha.com, check that out. Follow us on social media at the Orisha Center, at the Orisha Center. All right, I'm out. Odabo.